Hello, this is Amy Towner with Healthcare Foundation for Ventura County, and we're gathered here today with Crista Hermance of Hermance Law. As you know, Healthcare Foundation has started the estate planning workshops, and due to popular demand, a lot of you wanted to know a little bit more about Giving Docs. So Giving Docs is a free platform that Healthcare Foundation has secured for all the people in Ventura County, and especially our county employees, their families, friends, and other people that you serve. To give a little context and the reason why, you might be interested to know that there are only 30,203 properties that are actually held in trust right now in Ventura County, and that's out of 270,379 properties. So that means about almost 89% of the counties are not held in trust. So why is this important? And it's important because the average home right now in Ventura County is actually approaching $1 million now. And $1 million estate could actually face $40,000 to $70,000 in probate fees and expenses if someone passes away in your family and you don't have a trust. So this was really a call to action because in Ventura County, we want our assets and the things that we have garnered, the resources that we have garnered over the years to be passed down in appropriate ways to our loved ones. And so we really felt like as a part of the health and wellness of our community, it's not only the hospitals and clinics that are keeping you healthy. Your financial health is also a part of that. So to uncover a little bit about Giving Docs is a free and basic platform. It's typically good for just a single person, and a married couple may need to seek independent counsel of an estate attorney to help you navigate that. So each person's situation is going to be different, but we felt it was really important to be able to provide this as a service to the community. So I want to thank Crista Hermance, who's joining us today, and she's going to be able to explain a little bit and take you through the process, and we really hope that this helps. And please visit and share out our estate planning workshops to friends and family and community members and neighbors so that everybody has access. And we encourage you to come to a workshop either in person or virtually when you get our notices, so that if you have additional questions or you want to talk to other people and be a part of this, you are definitely welcome. Everyone is welcome at this. So without further ado, Crista, thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts for helping us. I know you're from Ventura County, and maybe tell everybody a little bit about yourself. And thank you again for imparting your wisdom about Giving Docs and taking us through. It won't take very long through Giving Docs. So thank you.
Thank you, Amy. My name is Crista Hermance. I'm an estate planning attorney. I am born and raised in Ventura. So to me, it's always been really about making sure that our community can thrive. And I think this is one of the opportunities that will just allow families to be able to put legal plans in place at a very low cost option for them. So at this point, I am going to share my screen and start walking you through what the actual platform of Giving Docs is going to look like. I'm going to share a little bit of guidance along the way when you're answering those questions to help you, because it does get a little bit confusing as to what the different roles are, and just kind of walk you through exactly what that experience would look like for you if you were doing it on your own. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so when you set up your profile in Giving Docs, and you should get the link within your email about being able to access that link, you will start by creating your profile. And so you are going to be doing this for yourself, right? You're answering these questions specifically for yourself, or if you're doing this for a loved one, they are your identity, right? And so those are the questions that you're going to be answering. So I'm going to just start by walking through these specific ones to be able to put information in here. So legal name. So you're going to start with first name. So we're going to put Jane. Her birth date is going to be January 1st, 1979. Also known as, this is really important if you have gone by any other legal names. So Jane is single, but she still has her divorce name at this point. So we're going to put her maiden name as Jane Doe. And a phone number is optional here, to just be able to put some number in here depending on the documents that it may pull from, because that's really what this is doing. You're filling out all of this information in. So when the documents are created, it's pulling these different boxes to complete those forms. Okay. Okay. Address, we're going to do, and I'm making all of this stuff up off the top of my head. So if this is actually somebody's information, hopefully it's not. So we're just going to say 12 First Street. And I do want them to be in California. You're reading through all of this stuff as you go through this. And oh, I'm sorry. And it prompted me here because I didn't put the last name. So it does say first, last. So make sure you're putting the last, first and last name. And you want to make sure everything is spelled properly. You have correct punctuation, capitals where it matters, because again, it is pulling this information. So make sure as you're going through this, you're reading all of the boxes that pop up, the things that you're checking through. I'm not going through that just to save time and be able to kind of get through these different documents with you. Okay, so next question, it asks, are you legally married? If you are not legally married, you would say no. If you are legally married, and you could always go back by clicking these buttons over here to be able to go through it if you put something wrong and you need to change the answer. Because depending on what you say, it's going to give you different prompts. But for purposes of this, we're going to say that she is not married. Okay. Now, again, as Amy said, that this is a really great platform for people that maybe are not married. If you are married, you can still absolutely use this platform. It may just not be the type of estate plan that you're looking for. So it's always best to seek legal advice to see, is it something that this would work for you? And in which case, then it would be great to use it. Okay, so next question is, do you have children? So it's important for this one. It specifically says to list all of your children. And the reason for this is your estate planning documents, they need to be complete, right? So whether you have minor children, if you have adult children, maybe you even have a child that you are disinheriting. So any of these children need to be put specifically on these documents, because the failure to leave them out could cause issues later on. And so for purposes of Jane, we're going to say yes, that she does have children. And now we are going to add the children. So Jane has Andrea, and it's going to want the first and last name. So Andrea Smith, and this child is not a minor, so we would keep it as no. And you can put Andrea Smith's information in here if they are an adult. I will tell you, just knowing the platform, if you're going to list Andrea as any agents down the road, you are going to need to include an address. So just know you are going to need addresses and phone numbers for some of the people as you're doing this, because some of the documents do require it to be listed on there. But for right now, I'm going to go ahead and just put Andrea Smith as a child and leave it at that. And then I'll show you later on where it's going to ask for that. Okay. So Andrea Smith, she is an adult. We're going to be done with that. And then it's going to ask, if we have any other children, we want to make sure we add them here. And so Andrea is an adult, but Jane does have one minor child. And so the next minor child is Audrey Smith. And we're going to put here that she is a minor. And the date of birth here is optional, but we'll go ahead and put that. She was born on 12/12, shouldn't be a minor. She was born in the 1900s. So we're going to say 2015. Okay. Now, one thing to take note of is at any point that you're going through this, if you see some wording that specifically talks about something to look for that it may not care for, to please consult with an attorney. So it's really important to make sure that you're reading this language to see, is this something that I can use, or do I need to seek other legal help? Okay. Because again, this platform is not giving any legal advice. It is preparing the documents to help you complete your estate plan. Okay. So Audrey Smith, we have as a minor, we have her date of birth there. And then at this point, we are going to go ahead and click done. And now we've done the question about marital status. We've added the children. We're going to hit next. And it asks about pets, right? If we want to care for our furry family members. And so here, let's say Jane does have a pet, and this pet's name is Fido Smith, and he is a dog. Okay. So we're going to click next. Now we've added in Fido. And then as you're going through this, there's going to be other prompts that are really important for you to be able to read through. Again, I'm not going to go through all of this just in an effort to save time and really help you kind of walk through this, but it's important to read through all of these prompts that come up. Okay. Okay, so now it's going to list your beneficiaries here on kind of your summary page. If everything is correct, you can click next. If you need to make any changes, maybe you notice somebody's name was spelled correctly, you can click edit, go back in and make that change, and then just click done. And then once you're there, you can click next. And here, again, reading through all of the acknowledgments and the instructions is going to be super important. I'm going to click complete profile. So now on the platform, it is going to give you your estate planning documents that you can complete, right? So if you look here, you have a trust and pour over will or a will, beneficiary designations, financial power of attorney, and healthcare directives. So all very important documents. They all do different things. And it's really important to understand that, estate planning isn't just completing one of these documents, right? It's not just having a will. It's not just having a power of attorney. It's all of them that work together. And so because, as Amy mentioned, one of the biggest assets that most of the people have when it comes to planning is their home. We are actually going to create a trust. And so I'm going to walk you through what the steps are to do that. If you don't need a trust, then you can just use this platform to create a will and some of the other estate planning documents for you. But because Jane owns a home, we want to make sure that that home is going to be protected from having to go through probate court. So we're going to go through the process to create Jane's trust. So here, create your trust. You're going to click view and edit. And this is where it gives you the option. Do you want to do a will only, or do you want to do a revocable living trust with a pour over will? So we're going to choose that one because we do want to create a trust. And so now it's going to go through all of the questions to be able to figure out what is going to go into your trust, right? To be able to create that language. So I'm going to choose just a few things here. Tangible personal property. I'm going to add in here, if it's anything of significant value. So we're just going to do a record collection. And the value of the record collection is at $2,500. And I'm going to click save here. And so these are things that if you have specific personal items that you want to be able to give to people in your estate planning documents, this is a way to be able to do that. Okay, real estate. So really important here is you want to make sure that if you own a property, you're putting that information. And so let's just say she owns the property here on 12 First Street, or I think it was Main Street. And that was in Ventura. And the estimated value of the property, let's say it's $850,000, right? Because when we look at the value, it's not how much equity you have in the property, it's how much what is the fair market value? How much would it sell for? So we're going to click save. If you have more properties, continue adding the different pieces here. Financial accounts. Here, it's kind of just asking you to describe the financial account. So let's just do a credit union, or let's just say checking account. And the financial institution, it actually has some preloaded. So you can say credit union. And so like Navy Federal Credit Union pops up here. So I'm going to just choose that one. And let's say she's got $5,000 in the bank. Okay. So we're going to click save. Now, there's other options here, digital assets, additional titled assets. There's also an option here to see funding instructions. So you can click that and it's going to give you an idea of how these assets need to be funded into your trust. Because completing this process it's actually, this is just the first step of many parts of completing your estate plan. And So this is drafting the documents, right? And I'm going to show you what that's going to look like at the end so you can actually print them out. The next step is actually getting them signed, which is a really important step, because if you don't have the document signed, it's not a valid legal document. And then the last step is going to be funding, right? So funding your trust, meaning moving the assets from a title perspective into the name of your trust. And that's where we see a lot of people that have issues, is they don't actually fund their trust, because by just putting this property address here, that's going to be listed in your trust, but it doesn't actually change title. And so you would need to do a deed transfer, transferring title from you to you as the trustee of your trust. And that's a separate document that's going to need to be drafted and filed with the county. Okay. Same thing with your bank account. Just because it's listed here doesn't actually mean it's funded in the name of your trust. You're going to need to be able to go here to Navy Federal Credit Union and change the account name. Okay. But we'll go into funding more as we get towards the end. Okay. So I'm going to click next because I've given all of the stuff that I wanted to do in the assets section. And now you can add specific gifts, right, to your instructions. So let's say that we wanted to give this give some of these assets here. We could say you could either just click in here to assign a beneficiary, and it's actually going to be able to pull the beneficiaries that you have from before. And so let's say her adult daughter, she wants her to have the record collection. So she's going to click save. And if you wanted to put any notes or anything else in there, you can do that. And we're just going to click save. So now in her estate planning documents, that record collection is going to Andrea. For the property, we don't want it specifically to one person. We just want it to be shared. And so we're not going to do it as a specific gift. Okay. Now I'm going to click next. And here it's going to ask you who you want for the percentages. And so if I wanted to distribute equally between my children and the healthcare foundation, here they're getting 10%. You can change this to whatever you feel comfortable with. But let's say if we had 10% going to the healthcare foundation, then we could distribute the 90% between the two kids, right? If that's what we wanted to do. So then we would say 45 and 45. And what it's actually going to do is it's going to tell you how much you have remaining. And so if you're concerned that your math isn't going to be done, because I have seen that happen before, where people's maths in other estate plans, it didn't add up correctly. You're going to do correct here, right? So I tried to put in 55 and it's not letting me, because it's saying you only have 45 left. So it automatically changed it to 45. So it's smart like that. Okay. So here it's just going to be the remainder. So for her case, it would be her house, right? That's left over. And then this is what the percentages would be. Okay. We're going to click next here. And again, you should make sure you're reading all of these pop-ups as they come up. This talks about, who you want to act as your successor trustee, assigning guardian, and then adding any final wishes. So we're going to click continue through here. So the successor trustee, when you're creating your revocable living trust, is basically the agent that you are identifying that's going to be able to step in for you if you were to get sick or pass away. And so I like to think of this person as a financial agent. So they're good with money. They can, go to the bank, they can follow instructions, they can handle the paperwork side. And so you want to make sure you're choosing somebody in that role that fits that criteria. Here, Jane, we know, has an adult child. And so Jane can choose her adult child to be able to be her agent. But, if she doesn't want to, she can choose somebody else. And so let's say select a successor trustee. And here, Andrea is the adult child. And so that's who is available. But let's say she wants a close friend or maybe a sibling. So let's say that she has John, and his name is John First. And he is a close friend of hers that she wants to be in charge of her trust if something were to happen to her. So we've chosen John here, and we're going to click save. And now you see that John is the primary. When you're identifying your people in these documents, it's important to have backups. And so let's add an alternate successor trustee, and she's going to choose her adult daughter, Andrea. Okay, so now you see successor trustee. It also, if you look here, says personal representative. We'll get into that in just a moment. But you have John as the primary and Andrea as the alternate. Okay, so now we're going to click next. And Jane does have a minor child, so we need to add a guardian. And so for purposes of, again, just kind of making this easy, we're going to say that, Andrea she's in college right now. And so she doesn't necessarily want Andrea to take over as guardianship. So maybe she wants John. And so we're going to list John here. We're going to save that. And then we're going to list Andrea as the alternate. Okay. And again, anytime you need to make any changes to anything, you can click through the different options over here to go back. You can always click edit here to just be able to go through the different screens. Okay, we're going to click next. And here it asks if you want to leave a gift to the guardian, right? And this is, again, just optional. And let's just say she wants to leave $5,000 to whoever's going to be guardian of her child. And now we can talk about the caregiver for your pet, right? So who you would want to be able to take care of your pet. So primary caregiver, Andrea, is very close with Fido. And so Jane wants Andrea to be the caregiver. And so we're going to list Andrea here, click save. And then we're going to go ahead and list John as the alternate. Okay, always having that alternate on whoever you choose as a primary. Okay, now we're going to click next. And do we want to leave any gifts for whoever's taking over the pet? And so let's say for this one, it's $2,500 to cover food and vet expenses, at least something. But again, totally your choice on what you want to do, if anything, for any of these additional gifts. Okay. So now we're going to click next. Here you have the ability to leave any final notes, last wishes. This is the option or the place that you would actually want to do that. If you wanted to put anything in here, I'm going to click through this and go to review trust. And now you've completed your trust and your pour-over will, right? So the next steps, it's going to give you this dashboard or summary to be able to look at and then download those documents. So I'm going to click continue. And it's important to review all of this, make sure everything is spelled correctly, what your gifts are going to look like, who your people are, guardians that you have, and then it's going to give you the option to print these documents. So you can print from here, you can also print from down here. And so I'm going to click the print button and it's going to pull up the screen to show you what these documents look like. So this is the first one. It gives you instructions, make sure to look through all of these, read the information. A really important one is here it says sign and finalize your documents, because once you print these documents, okay, so this is the checklist, and it says right here, this is the checklist. So now I'm going to print the trust. So it's important once you print this, you save it, download it to be able to then print, and it's going to give you instructions. So make sure you read through all of these. It talks about funding your trust, where to store it, notes for your successor trustee. And then this page here is where it actually starts with the trust. Okay, so read through it, make sure it makes sense to you. It's going to have parts in here as you're going through it where you will initial it once it's printed. And then as you go through all of it, every page has initials that need to be initialed. At the end, very important, you have where you sign it, okay? And this is one that needs to be completed, where it has to be signed, and having it notarized, right, is a really important aspect of it. And so here, Jane would print out her documents, take them to a notary, and have them signed in front of the notary public. Okay, and then the notary is going to put their information in there. Schedule is where it gets into what are the assets listed in the trust, right? You can see that from the information that I put in there. And then this is what we call a general assignment of Jane's assets. So it's important to make sure you're completing all of these blank spots and signing and dating. Okay, so that's the trust portion. Then if you go back to the dashboard, you'll see pour over will. So I'm going to click print that. And this pour over will is going to be very similar to the trust. You want to make sure you download it to be able to print it out. It's got your instructions here, and the will, or the pour over will as we call this one, is going to be slightly different from a signing perspective. So here, for the will to be valid, and it's important again to make sure you're reading through all of this to make sure everything is clear in here. And the reason we call this a pour over will is it says that all of the assets are under the terms of the trust, right? And so the idea is that probate should be avoided because all of the assets are in the trust. And so this is what we call a pour over will for that. And so here, and minor child, right? So Jane had minor children. So you see that there's information here about minor children. And just continuing down as you read through all of it. So here's the guardianship for the minor child. The other one up above was about the gift for taking guardianship of the minor child, caregiver for pets. So that's in there for Fido. And then here we get to the signing page. And so under this signing page, it's important to know that Jane is signing this document where it's being witnessed by 2 people that are over the age of 18. Right? The notary can act as one witness, but you need to have an additional person. In this case, I would not recommend that John sign it because he's listed in here, nor would I ask that her daughter sign it as a witness, right? It needs to be somebody that is independent, right? They're not listed in these documents, but it does not require a notarization. It's just a witness, right? 2 witnesses over the age of 18, okay? And that will make it a legal document. Okay, so now we've looked at your trust, we've looked at your will, and now we can click here and click go back to dashboard. And there are 2 other documents that I want to mention on here that are important. Before I get to that, I'm sorry. If you see here, you see it's at 90%, right? And for some of you that really like to check those boxes of things being done, the way that you get this to 100% is by coming back in here after you sign your documents and you answer the question, have you executed your trust? Right? So once you get all your documents signed, then you can come back here and click yes, and it will confirm that it's been completed and it will mark it to 100%. Okay. So that's how you get that to 100. Okay. So, and then it's marked off. So the 2 other documents I want to just go through briefly with you are the power of attorney and the healthcare directive. So the power of attorney, this is a document where you're identifying an agent to be able to make financial decisions on your behalf if you are unable to do so. Going to the bank, going to the post office, filing tax returns, anything that if you didn't have that mental capacity to be able to do, if you got sick, if you were hospitalized, then this person can step in to be able to act with this document. So here you're going to click view and edit. And it's going to be the same thing where you're going to just start answering questions. So this first question is, when do you want this to go into effect? Do you want it to be effective immediately, like right now, or if I become incapacitated? So for this question, I generally tell clients, if you're in good health right now and you have no reason that you would want somebody to be able to act, then you can choose if I become incapacitated. So it only springs into effect if you were to become incapacitated. But if you maybe are just kind of at the point where you're having your kids that are helping you with your finances, if you're not feeling up to it and you do want that extra help, then I would say, choose that effective immediately. But let's just say for Jane, if I become incapacitated is good for her. We're going to click through next. And here, this is where you're going to start choosing your agents. So the agents that you have from before, it's going to pull all that information, but this is where it's going to give you, it's going to ask for more information, like I said. So here, let's put John as the first because she does trust John. So we're going to click save. And we're going to do the same, that we're going to put her adult daughter as the backup agent to John. Okay, so we have Andrea here. We're going to click save. And here you actually have the ability to create a second successor. So if Andrea couldn't act, for this purpose, I'm just going to go ahead and leave it as blank and just have John as the primary and Andrea as the backup agent to John. And I'm going to click next. Here, if you have any limitations, if you want it to expire at a certain time, all optional, but again, important to read through this to make sure that you are filling it out the way that you actually want it. So I'm going to click Save and Review and see how it's giving this error that address is required. And so now we need to go in and put some addresses for the people in here. So I'm going to just say, John lives at 123 First Street in Ventura. And if you put the correct address, you can probably be able to do that, but I'm just making up addresses here as we go. So there's John's address and he's done. And so this will update to show you're no longer getting an error there. And here, Andrea, her address is required because again, she is the backup and we need to put hers in. And so she lives at 456 2nd Street. And she also lives in Ventura. Okay. So now no errors on that page. And at this point, it's going to just download the PDF. So I'm going to click download PDF and that power of attorney document is going to populate. It's going to have instructions here where it says, you know, you need to notarize your power of attorney. So finding an attorney or finding a notary to be able to do that. And the document will actually start on this page. Okay, so this first page here is talking about the powers and it actually has where your agent will sign. So here, John is the agent that would be first, right, as the primary agents. And so she would have John sign this document. This doesn't need to be notarized by John, but it just shows that he is aware and acting in that capacity when time comes. And then here is where the actual language starts for Jean. And so you can read through it and just make sure everything is populating correctly. It's really important with the power of attorney because you will need to initial the things that you want your agents to be able to have the authority to do. So real property, tangible personal property transactions, all of these different ones you can initial if you specifically want some. If you just want them to have all of these options, you would go all the way down to the bottom to N. And here you would initial if you wanted them to have all of these powers. Okay. Any special instructions, you can write that in there. And then as you continue scrolling down, you'll see your signature is going to be required here. But again, you're going to want to sign it in front of a notary, which is this page right here. Okay. This one is specifically saying if you have witnesses that you're going to have witness it or just having the notary done. Okay. Okay. The last I'm sorry. One thing I wanted to mention with the power of attorney is the power of attorney document is only valid while somebody is alive. And so this is the document that if somebody was sick, that the agent would be able to use. So once somebody passes away, that's when some of the other documents come into play, like the will and the trust, right? So it's important to kind of understand the distinction between those documents. With all of these documents, it's important to make sure that the people that you are choosing as your agents, that you want to have a conversation with them to make sure that they are okay acting on your behalf. And then you want to make sure that they know where those documents are. Okay, here I'm going to click Return to Dashboard and just do the last document that I want to share with you, which is the Healthcare Directive. So this one is specifically relating to healthcare decisions and certain end-of-life decisions. Okay, so we're going to go through this one briefly. Okay, so the living will, which gets a little bit confusing because it's not a will, right? The will, when we're referring to the will, was that power, that pour over will. The living will here is the idea of your healthcare choices, where we specifically call it a healthcare directive. So you're going to go through these important decisions, be able to put in any of this information you want here, you know, prolong my life, all really important things to make sure you're reading through and choosing specifically which ones you want. You know, if you want some or none, you can go through and put yes or no for those. I'm just going to choose some different ones in there just to kind of give it a little bit of variety and showing you how it comes out. here, your medical power of attorney. So this is identifying that agent again to make healthcare decisions and be able to follow your wishes from a healthcare perspective. And so for this one, you might not have it as the same people that you chose as your agents for your financial decisions, because this is specific to healthcare. And so you can change, whoever you want in these different roles. But this is a different one, right? From the stress and emotional side that's going to go through it. So it's really important to make sure you're putting the people that are going to be successful and be able to handle this role in there. So for this agent, we are going to go ahead and put Andrea. Jane did talk to Andrea and got Andrea's permission that she's okay making these decisions for her mother. So we're going to click save there. And then we're going to go ahead and list John as the backup. Okay. So here, this is just a review of the choices that you made. I'm going to download it because I want to show you where there are also other things that once you print this out, you're going to go through and check these boxes or cross things out so you know that there's more stuff that needs to be done. So your advanced healthcare directive form, again, that's what we call it in California, has this information starting here, right? So it has Andrea as her primary, it has John as the backup. You can put in any of these phone numbers of things that you want. When it becomes effective, if you want it to be effective now, you can check this box and that would be effective immediately. And then in here, there's other parts that you may want to complete and some that actually do need more information on. So if you have anything specific, you can put things in here. So like this is relating to organ donation, what you want your agent to be able to do. Here's that choice not to prolong life with the questions that I answered, the yes and the no's to, and you can see the one that I answered yes to is crossed out. There are other wishes here, giving you the ability to write that stuff in. Here it gets into organ donation, so you can choose if you want to do any type of organ donation. If you don't, crossing these lines out. Primary physician, if you want to put their information in here. And then you're going to date and sign this form. Here, this form can be witnessed, right, by 2 witnesses, and it can also be notarized, which is going to be this acknowledgement here. Okay. Okay. Those are all the documents that I wanted to go through with you for the Giving Docs platform. The last thing that I want to end with is that it's so important is when you're going through this process, you need to make sure that that once the documents are completed, you have them signed, is that you are then figuring out, okay, what needs to be done to change accounts, to change beneficiary designations, to change title. Because when you have a trust, if a trust isn't funded, meaning there aren't assets in the name of the trust or pointing at the trust by beneficiary designation, the trust has no assets to be able to actually act. And so it's really important to follow the instructions about what to do in funding your trust to make sure that you're getting your assets into the name of the trust, whether it's your primary residence, if you have rental properties, bank accounts, beneficiary designations for life insurance, investment accounts. So follow the instructions when the estate planning documents get printed out that talk about funding your trust. Okay. I think that is all I had to go through with Giving Docs, and hopefully that was a walkthrough that's going to be helpful in helping you get through it.
Crista, thank you so much. This is really overwhelming for many of us, and we're so fortunate and grateful to have you to be able to kind of at least give us a cursory view on some of this of what to do, what not to do, what it does, what it can't do, and what are best practices. This is an important time for our community so that we make sure that these dollars, if you do go through probate, a lot of times it just gets stuck with the state of California and it sits there. And a lot of people just don't realize that. And especially when we have properties in Ventura County that the average property is worth $1 million. So I think it's really important for our preservation of our health and wellness and our financial wellness going forward. I'll also add that Going forward over the next 10 years, 10 and 20 years, we're going to see the largest transfer of wealth that our world has ever seen. And, and naming a charity, and if there are, funds or charitable causes that you are interested in participating in, now is that time. And we really appreciate and value that our community is willing to invest back into the healthcare system that's keeping our community healthy, so that Ventura County is the healthiest place to work, live, and play. So Giving Docs, it does pre-populate a 10% gift to Healthcare Foundation. We always like to remind everyone, I mean, you have the option. This is your trust and your documents. But we, in advance, if you do choose to engage, we want you to know that we appreciate that. We want to build a culture of philanthropy in Ventura County, and and really be able to invest directly back here in Ventura County. It's not going beyond that. So if you ever do have any questions, all of you have my information. My email is amy.towner@ventura.org. My office number is 805-652-3361. You can always call. We have lots of good estate planning attorneys in Ventura County. We're very, very fortunate. Crista, we're so fortunate to have you. We appreciate how you give of yourself to educate us so that we have the options. And it means a lot to us that you give of your time, talent, and treasure to show up and do this. And newly appointed to our board now, so we appreciate your service on our board of directors as well, and you giving back to the foundation, which is in turn giving back to the community. So thank you again for all that you do for us and for our community.
Thanks, Amy.
Thank you. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.